I just wanted to thank you for coming today. My name's Amy Davidson. I am the Santa Barbara Museum of Art store manager. Welcome to the SBMA Holiday Market, showcasing local women artisans. We're here as a community to lift up creative, smart women who share their art with us by making it available in beautifully inspiring forms. In the book titled Your Brain on Art, the authors focus on the positive endorphins, calming effect of creating art and what it does to your mood, your spirit, and your soul. It can lengthen your life and bring together communities as it has today. Each of these women brings art to our daily lives, whether it's carrying a purse of innovative design on a trip or to the theater, bringing family and friends together in front of the fire with a puzzle, or feeding your soul with chocolates made with love. These women are opening the new doors with their work and inspiring us all. Barbara Flanagan is a product designer, artist, trained architect, and author. She has designed for MoMA and recently created the innovative loop bag. It's high on design and exquisite craftsmanship. And Athena Philippides is a collage artist, a ceramicist, and has created puzzles and note cards based on her collages. She's brought her original artwork with her today, allowing us to see the intricacies of her work and a glimpse into the many hours it takes to create them. Marley Van Sicklen of Marley's Confections delights with her own unique brand of chocolates. She's a professional chocolatier. She collaborates with Field and Fort and is opening a new store in Montecito later this month. And Lynda Weinman is an entrepreneur, designer, and innovator. She has recently created some fantastic 3D printed home and fashion accessories under the label of Lynda Labs. She's here with us today to share a little bit about her process and show us how she pushes the boundaries of technology and design. There's so much to talk about that excites me with Lynda's new work, but I think I will let her do the honors and share what she's been up to for herself. But first, I want to say, after the talk, you're welcome to join us in the lobby for holiday shopping for friends, family, and yourself, of course. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, don't forget to shop in the museum store this holiday season. Please join me in welcoming Lynda Weinman to the stage.
Thank you, Amy. I think I'm mic'd. Isn't that magical? Okay, these are props. So they come a little bit later in the talk. So thank you so much for having me. It's been such an amazing journey to work with the museum here, and I have to really thank Amy for allowing me to express myself in this setting. She knows that it's sort of been a dream of mine to be in museum stores, and I love the idea of my work also being philanthropic and supporting a really good cause like an art museum, which is such an important community resource for all of us. So I thought that I would just start by, I know a lot of you know me. It's kind of dark, but that's a picture of me when I was 28 at my Mac. There we go. Oh yeah, that looks much better. So I started 3D printing when I turned 64, and I say that just because I know a lot of people put off, myself included. I loved art as a kid, but I never thought I could make a living doing art, so I kind of pushed it aside and didn't come back to it until my 60s. And so just that, you know, we don't really have an age limit on when we can start to learn how to do something new and how to be creative. When I was in college, home computers didn't even exist. We had a computer in the basement that was punch cards, and we used to play like a psychiatrist game on it or something. It was really silly. But I couldn't have even known that this was a career that I would choose or any kind of interest or aptitude for this subject matter. So I got my first computer when I was 28, and it launched a career of me teaching computer skills and culminating in a company that I started with my husband called Lynda.com. And we ran the company for 20 years and sold it to LinkedIn about 10 years ago. So after we sold the company, Bruce, my husband, who I don't think he's here yet, but he's going to come, He was very immersed in designing an amazing home, and he was filming everything and learning how to edit footage and really, really engaged making this incredible house. And I just didn't feel like I had the same sense of purpose in my own life, and I was jealous. And I asked him as he was developing the programming for our new house, would you build me a ceramic studio? Because I had thrown pots in high school, and I had this very fond memory of it, and it had always been a goal of mine to go back and do that someday when I could. So he agreed, and I decided, oh, I better take a class and see if I still like it. And sure enough, I did not. I took a class at the local community college, the Schott Center, and it was a throwing class, and this is what I threw. And I just could barely even find it on the shelf because every other person in this class had made this exact same pot. And I just thought, it's not very satisfying, not quite hitting the spot. But I discovered that there was a class at this place in Colorado called Anderson Ranch that had a class called Digitally Created Molds for Ceramics with Del Harrow. And so being a former software teacher myself, I knew, and I had dabbled in 3D modeling earlier in my life. And so I thought, gee, maybe that would be more interesting than wheel throwing. So I went to this incredible class. This was the curriculum for our class. And we were working with CNC machine, which is a kind of computerized milling machine. And we were milling molds and casting them out of plaster and milling them. And this was the CNC machine. This is a picture of me with my very first mold. And this was in 2018, so this is when I'm starting to explore this idea of getting into ceramics. And the woman on the bottom, her name's Elaine Quave. She's a wonderful artist. And she told me that she taught high school ceramics and that she had a ceramic 3D printer that printed ceramics. And so I thought, if high school kids can learn how to do this, I think I can too. And I ended up purchasing a ceramic printer the week that COVID shut down the country. I called the company and asked if they had a desktop version. I asked my husband if he would allow me to use our living room and dining room as a ceramic studio. And given that we weren't going to have any dinner parties, he agreed. And our hallway was the location as a drying rack for some of my early 3D printing and ceramics. And this was my dining room table with my thumb in the lens. I didn't realize that till I put this slide on a big projector. And then this is the dining room table with a cloth. And we're no longer eating dinner here. I'm madly making ceramics. Apparently, I have a very obsessive personality, and when I like something, I just kind of go all in, and that's what I did with the ceramics printing. So to learn how to do this, I thought, should I go back to college? Should I get a master's degree? What should I do? And I, given that COVID kind of hit, I thought, well, I think I'll just make my own curriculum, and I'll just go work with teachers that I admire and set things up for myself that are going to work to teach me what I want to learn. So I took classes over Zoom for probably 2 years. I took a twice-a-week class to learn Rhino. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I ended up buying a kiln, online because everything was COVID, and I watched how to load it on YouTube. I've never operated a kiln before in my life. And I studied how to model in Rhino and Fusion and a few other programs. When I was at Anderson Ranch, I learned how to work with a plastic printer. And so I had a printer that took a single color filament, and I worked with it for quite a long time, but I was still doing ceramic printing, and I was still doing I have a resin printer that's a 3D printer as well. I'm just kind of obsessed with 3D printing, I guess. And so I ended up discovering this bamboo printer, which is a new kind of printer. It's been out for maybe a year and a half or so. And it takes all these different colored filaments, which you see here on the right. And so what I really liked about it was that, you don't have to fire anything. You don't have to, bisque and glaze and all of the different things that you do with ceramics. That it was really kind of fun to play with the surface design, with the color design, in this really immediate fashion with these colored filaments that were so attractive to me, which I'm kind of obsessed with all the glitters and the colors, and you'll see them in my work. And the idea that you could rapidly prototype an idea, which you could also do in ceramics, but it's just a little more rapid on the plastic printer. And it encouraged me to start to make a lot of functional objects. I started with a whole series that I called trippy tissue boxes. And now, I've gone on to make all kinds of other things, a lot of which are here for sale. And then the thing that really got me was I realized that I could make jewelry with the plastic printer. And then that took me down a rabbit hole that I've really not been able to climb out of. I just, I can work large. The interesting thing about 3D printing is you can work large or small. It kind of doesn't matter. But I find myself, just obsessed with making these little tiny things, the earrings and the rings. And I've made a lot of other things too. But we also have set up in my studio, I have a jewelry studio and a 3D printing farm. At this point, I have 11 3D printers. And we've also set up a jewelry class with a local teacher. And I bring a lot of artists over to my jewelry studio, some of who are here in the audience. And we have this kind of quasi-private class together and are learning different techniques for making jewelry. So I thought, I would just sort of show some of the plastic work in a slideshow. These are some of the rings, and those are called bubble rings. And then these are little ring boxes that are also made out of the same filaments and plastic. And then these are different rings. I'm wearing a lot of rings too, and there are tons of rings out in the marketplace here. And just some of the different earring designs, and I print my own labels, as you can see, and I love seeing the work on different real people, not models. This is Alex, who came to visit me last week, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the supports when you 3D print, but some of the tree forms that you'll see in these bowls, and also you'll see them later when I show my process, are a type of a support system that the 3D printer can use to set up a support, which I'll explain what that does and what that means. But these are obviously some vases and tissue boxes, and I just threw some slides together. This is a candlestick holder and some different bowls. And then I started to make purses about 3 weeks ago. And this is what I mean by rapid prototyping, just how easy it is to, especially when you have 11 printers. It's not as easy for everybody, but I do have a lot of printers, so you'll see them all kind of working together. But these are some of the purse designs. And that's Amy, who's the buyer here at the store, and some different photo shoots that we put the purses into. And these are all different plastic filaments. Some of them have glitter in them. Some of them are just multicolored, like a single, you'll see what the spools look like, but a single spool can have multiple colors in it, and that's how some of the striping is done. And then I also have a way to paint and make my own stripes. So I thought I would just share a little bit about my process, and I know that very few of you are 3D printers, nor are you going to learn 3D printing. So I'm going to try to speak about it in layman terms so that it's not overwhelming. But I also think it's sort of fascinating, obviously to me, but I hope to you as well. So this is a movie that I made of making a purse. And it's a purse that I had already made, so I kind of knew what I was doing, and I've sped the video up. So I start, and I have kind of a library of different geometric shapes that I can pick from, and these are all different kinds of geometry, and I'm just sort of selecting the one that I like, and I call this form finding, where you don't really know what you're going to do, but then you're looking for something and you like it, and then I start with a sphere, and it's just a perfectly round ball, and this is different views on the 3D printer, so it's like a top view, a side view, and a perspective view. And I'm converting that form into what's called a mesh, which is just something that I have to do in order to modify it. And the next thing that I'm doing is I'm slicing off the bottom, and I'm doing that with an algorithm called a Boolean, which is a mathematical term. and I'm squishing it, and I'm stretching it, and I'm measuring it, and eventually I'm also going to take a tool that allows me to sort of, with different points, stretch it in different directions. So what I want is the purse to not just be one kind of flat profile. I want it to expand in the middle and be more narrow at the handle. So I take this process, which is in this three-dimensional software, and I'm able to give it a cage. It's called a cage edit. And I'm stretching it in the way that I want to have the profile of the purse look. And so I'm shrinking it at the handle, and I'm stretching it where the body of the purse is. And this is how I'm making the virtual, this is obviously all just in the computer. It's not a real object yet. And then I'm going to punch the handle out. And so I'm taking another sphere, and you can kind of see it in the perspective view, where I can stretch it and I can position it to where I like the look of the handle. And so I'm taking that, and it's kind of punching through both sides. We're seeing wireframes in some of the view and a rendering in the top right perspective view. And so I'm taking that sphere that I've stretched and pulled and positioned where I want it, and then I'm going to do another Boolean operation, which is going to subtract that sphere from the main object, and it's going to give me my handle. And so that is about to happen. And so now it's punched all the way through, but it's a solid object. So what I next want to do is I want to make it hollow, because we want to put things in the purse. And so I'm kind of I'm taking a plane and I'm trimming the bottom of it so that it's open, but I'm also leaving some of it solid at the handle because I want the handle to be sturdy and not break. And so the next thing that I'm doing is I'm bringing this model into another piece of software. And this next piece of software is where I do a lot of different operations, but one of the operations that I like to do in here is a thickening of the shell. So what you saw in that first piece of software that I'm bringing in here, it's only a surface. It doesn't really have any volume to it yet. So it's a surface, and I'm going to assign it this process called thicken the body, and I'm doing what I need to do to make that happen, and eventually it's going to become thicker, and it's going to have a rounded edge, and this is what I discovered that I was very happy with. And after a lot of iteration and failure, trust me, I'm able to make this video so quickly because I've done it a bunch of times. And so I'm now exporting this to take it into what's called slicing software, and this is the Bamboo interface where I'm bringing my model, this is the purse, but it's still all virtual, and this is where I'm going to tell the 3D printer how to print this object. And part of what it has to do is it has to have supports. So I have a little prop here, the purse. If it can't print over air, right? The handle up here, if the printer were to print without supports, it would collapse because it can't just print in midair. So these are called tree supports, and it's just one of the many kinds of supports that you can use in the software, and it allows the printer to make a hole like this and have a floating region that is printing over air. It's not really printing over air because it's printing onto the supports. And then I can also do coloring in here. So I can assign different colors. I didn't bring one of my colored purses out for a prop, but I have them over in the store. And so this is telling the printer this particular printer has 4 colored spools in it. And so I'm assigning the 4 different colors to the object and slicing it and putting the supports into it, and then assigning it to a printer and mapping the different those little colored boxes, I'm mapping them to the different spools. And then that goes out and makes a purse, very Star Trekian. And then I also wanted to show, I have some other things that I do in this software. I hope you can see this, but I brought a candlestick holder, and this little bottom piece it's called a Voronoi. It's another kind of mathematical algorithm, actually. And so the way that I do that in this software is I make a point cloud. So this is a point cloud in the shape of the purse. And then I can assign it to be a Voronoi where every one of those points gets a line attached to it. And I can tell it how many of those points I want. So I just increased it to 1,000 from 100. And I think in the end, I also increase it to 2,500, and you'll see it'll get a lot more dense. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to give it, I don't like how it's just kind of spiky at this edge, so I want to give it another piece that kind of closes off the shape. So I've just added that piece. And I don't like how it looks because the top part, if you remember, I cut the model and I made the handle solid, but I made the purse hollow. And so the solid handle doesn't really look the same with that line that finishes off the form. So I redid the model and I made the whole thing a surface model versus having it be part volume and part surface. And I'm bringing it back into the software, and then you'll see that when I add the little line, it's going to look the way that I want it to look. And that's kind of how this all goes. So I'm going to swap that model out now. And those are the lines, and now I like it much better because it's complete in the oval where the handle is. And so now I'm just changing the number of points, and I'm going to make it really, really dense. And there it is with 2,500 points instead of 1,000, which it was at before. And you can see how fun and interactive it is. Like if you have something in your mind's eye and you're searching for it, you can change a variable. That's called a variable where it's either 100 or it's 1,000 or it's 2,500. And then you can get the kind of form that you're looking for. And then, of course, this I would export it. I would send it out to the slicing software and print it on the 3D plastic printer. And I think this is probably going to end any second here. But I'm just now exporting it so that it's something that the printer will understand. There's a lot of file format exchange and working in different software. And so here I am back in the slicing software and adding the tree supports. And so that is a little bit of the purse making process and also the candlestick making process. Thank you. And it's also quite interesting to see the printer print. So this is each one of the printers, not only do they have all these different filaments, but they have cameras that come with them. And it records time lapse of the printer printing. And so this is an example of one of the purses printing. And this probably took place over about 18 hours. And I think the lights went off in my studio, which is why it got dark in the middle of the filming. But it's sort of mesmerizing to watch and fascinating. And then I have, this is, I think, one of the candlestick holder bottoms. And, it's just so magical, right? Yeah. And these are all the different filaments. So I've done the striping that maybe you caught when I was showing that part of the interface. And it's just really fun to, find all the different colored filaments that you love and stock your printer with them and then make beautiful colored objects. And I think I have one more. This is a tissue box. I think the tissue boxes take about 6 hours to print. Some of the purses take over 24 hours. I've had prints that have taken 4 and 5 days.
How about the jewelry?
The jewelry goes pretty fast. So, and also with jewelry, I can load up a tray. Like if I have, let's say with the rings, a lot of the rings that I make have the same band. So I'll put maybe 10 on a tray and print 10 at once. And then I'll have 10 of them to make up different rings with. And then when Amy came over to my studio, this was she did these films on her iPhone. But this shows some of my 11 printers all printing purses. And that's how I was able in 3 weeks to make all the purses that you see out there. And I was sort of explaining the process to her, but I took the sound off so that I figured I'll explain this to you. But you can see the different colored spools that are on the top. And some of the spools have gradients in them, and some of them are solid color, and some of them are duotone or triple toned. And so these are some of the spools. So I just have literally hundreds of spools. So these are some finished purses. And I also want you to know that there are disasters because you can't really do this without failing. And you often have to push yourself to failure to understand how far you can push something. So, you'll have something printing, like for example, this purse probably took about 8 to 10 hours to get to the point where it failed. And so I walk in the studio hoping I'm gonna see a purse, and I see this big mess, and that's just part of 3D printing life. So in summary, and I wanna save time to take some questions, I just think it's really important that there's no timeline on when you decide you wanna learn something new and be creative and do something new. For me, it's been incredibly healing to stretch my mind, learn new things. I think being an artist and having the validation of other people liking your work so much is just extremely esteem boosting and also happiness boosting. And I like a studio. The reason why I call it Lynda Labs is because my studio is sort of an open studio, and I invite a lot of other artists to come in and collaborate with me. And both Bonnie and Barrett, who are out womaning my booth, are fellow artists who work in the studio, and there are other artists in here who I've worked with many times, and we have a really beautiful community here in Santa Barbara of artists who support each other. And so I had this dream, which I shared with Amy, that I wanted to sell in museum stores, and very grateful to her. She's gonna help connect me to some other museum stores. So I want to really thank the Santa Barbara Museum of Art for supporting my work, and thank all of you for coming out here and learning a little bit about it. And I'm happy to take some questions. Maybe we can raise up the lights and I can Thank you so much. Okay, there are, I don't know if this is on, and I don't know how important it is. But I was given that microphone in case there were questions. I don't know if it's on.
Oh, from
I'll repeat it.
for instance, from your purse, from design soup to nuts, how long does it take? Yeah,
Okay, great. A great question. From soup to nuts, how long does it take to design a purse? And I love this question. And somewhere on TikTok or YouTube or somebody, there's like a little song about it, like, it takes me fucking hours or something like that, But I mean, I don't know the whole song. But the truth of the matter is like, you cannot calculate how many hours I've spent learning this craft. Like, I have literally spent the last 4 to 5 years of my life almost every day doing this. And so, yes, a purse may take 14 hours to print. It may take me a couple weeks to design it and iterate it and get it to where I'm happy with it. But I could not do that had I not studied all the time that I studied and worked as hard as I worked. And so there really is no answer to that question. But I want the answer to be that it takes me fucking hours, right? So, sorry. Another question. Yes, in the back.
Thanks. Do you will you be giving workshops in the future, or maybe doing jewelry?
So, great question. Will I be doing workshops maybe in the future? And a lot of you know that I was a teacher. That was my career. And I was a teacher for probably about 40 years of my life. And I'm at a point in my life now where I don't want to teach anymore. It's sort of sad. I loved teaching. I have so much respect for teachers, and I get so much joy from teaching. But it's sort of my time now where I need the time to do my own work, and that's what's fueling me. And what I have done is I've created this sort of laboratory-like setting in my studio. I welcome a lot of young artists. Some of them are in this room. I actually have a little residency program that's invitation only, that I invite other 3D people who are pretty skilled already at 3D printing, because the thing is I love being a teacher, and witnessing the beginner's mind and watching people learn something new is the most magical, incredible honor of my life. But at this point, I'm just, like I'm almost 70. I'm looking at time being my that's what I have the least of. And so my passion right now is making. And however, someone told me that they have 3D printers at the new library. I don't know. And honestly, there's so much on YouTube and so much online that you can find. If you just get a little bit of a head start, somebody showing you a few basic things, there is a lot that you can do to teach yourself. So that's my long answer, sorry. No other questions, I'm shocked. Okay, there.
Are there softer, like the material range that you can do with printing? There's some softer
Yes.
ones, right?
Yes.
Are they strong enough?
Yes, there are lots and lots of different materials. There is stretchy filament. There is rubber, there's like a rubberized type of filament. There also are a lot of techniques where you can you can combine fabric and 3D printing, where you leave a little bit of space so that it's flexible, just depending on how you print on the fabric. And then, of course, there are 3D printers for sweaters and clothing, and there are fabric printers. There's so many kinds of printers, and printing obviously is there's a big future in manufacturing and printing. And so for this kind of a printer that I'm using, I think there's a limited number of materials. Yes.
You made these incredible big cacti.
Yes.
How did you make those? Because they're like, what, 4 feet?
Yes, I've made very large. I made a 6-foot tall 3D printed clay cacti that was for sale for Lotus Land, another nonprofit that I worked with. And what I did was I built it in pieces, and they were assembled. And it was in a gallery setting, so I had made the large cactus for indoor, but the person who purchased it wanted to have it as outdoor sculpture. So that was interesting, and I ended up getting plumbing, caulking and figuring out how to weatherproof it and keep it so it could exist outside. And as far as I know, it still exists. I haven't heard otherwise, but it is an outdoor sculpture, and that is possible. And one of the other artists who I work with is here in the audience, Jolie No, and she also works very large. She's been making lamps that are like this tall, and it's just stacked pieces that are combined, and you can either glaze, fuse it, or you can fuse it with other kinds of resins, or you can leave it where it's modular because it's kind of hard to transport if it's all one giant object. So there's a lot of different techniques. Yes.
Are you curious about kind of like your inner technology as far as finding your process, or what your process is like when you kind of approach the studio and you've got your gears grinding on maybe a figment of an idea or something?
Yeah. What's my artistic process of sort of getting from idea to? Well, I used to draw when I was younger a lot, and I took life drawing classes. I was pretty good at drawing figures and things, but as I've gotten older, I've really lost that desire and ability to draw by hand. And so I do a lot of my design work in the computer, actually, kind of like as I was showing you, I'm stretching something, I'm moving it around. I'll get the idea. At this point, there are a lot of recurring shapes and forms, and there's like a vocabulary to my work. And so there are certain techniques that I've used over and over again. Like, for example, I'm really excited, and I just haven't done it yet, to combine these two ideas. So I would like to make a handle. I was showing you a little bit the purse that was more lacy and latticey, but I'd like to do like a lattice handle with a solid bottom. And so there's a lot of other versions that are in my mind that I haven't even had time to work out, but I would probably work them out in the computer because that's where I'm the most comfortable and literate. It drives my husband crazy because he draws by hand and he can draw anything. and has sketchbooks full of ideas, but that's just not my process. So I embrace it. I'm a total computer person. Like luckily it exists, and I like it, and I know how to do it, and I've worked really hard to become fluent, to know how to do that, and it does take a lot of time, and it's not for everybody. Like when I showed my disaster, my failure, there is so much of that in what I do, and everything from the computer crashing to software being buggy to the filament getting dried out. Like there's just so many technical hurdles that you have to be willing to get through to get to the other side of it and actually have a body of work. And it's just not for everybody, and I think that's just fine. I think that's what makes the world go round, that we all have different strengths and interests and aptitudes, and mine is just this freaky-deaky computer stuff, no idea why. Yes?
I just want to say I am a proud owner of many pieces of Lynda's jewelry, and I get so many compliments when I go to the theater and I'm wearing the earrings, because they're very light, by the way. But I just want to say thank you for sharing the process, because I never knew what it took to make what I'm wearing. And,
Yeah.
And you're an excellent teacher.
Oh.
It's so easy to understand it. I mean, I've been.
Well, I want to thank, I have people staying at my house, and last night I previewed my talk. And they gave me a lot of corrections, which hopefully I took. A lot of notes. Like I talked about supports, and Bruce said, but you didn't really explain what supports are for. So today I was really careful to have a prop and show you why you need a support. So that was helpful. Thank you to all those people that helped me with that. Yes?
Hi, Lynda.
Hi, Joe.
I was wondering what artists that you look at for inspiration, or if you're not looking at other artists, like what you do look at for inspiration where you're born?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I love art, and I actually have a pretty amazing art collection, if I might say so myself. I know there's no such thing really as an original idea. And I know that we all stand on the shoulders. For example, I had been planning to make a purse, and Amy had asked me if I would make purses for the show before Lillian, who's in the audience, came to my studio and made some purses. And I saw what she did, and it really inspired me, and I sort of didn't want to do exactly what she did, but I wanted to do my own version of a purse. And so I tried to think about things that I could do differently that would make it more mine and in my vocabulary, but I was inspired by her. And I'm inspired by you all the time. And like you came into Joe came into the studio the other day, and I was printing the handles to the purses they look kind of like rope, like it's the purse that swings. And she said, oh, you're making them half and half colored down the middle. And I was like, no, they're just only halfway done printing, but I had never thought of that, but I like that idea. So, I mean, it's like things like that are just sort of serendipitous that you do not expect. And also, I would say that as a new artist, a lot of times assignments are the thing that just propel me to push myself. For example, being prompted to make a purse. I had thought of making purses before, but I really felt I owed it to Amy to make a purse, because I told her that I would try, and I told her that I would show her what I did. And it was just this little bit of pressure that pushed me nudged me, a little bit farther than I might have nudged myself. And I think the same is probably true for you when your gallery says, I want you to make lights, or whatever they say to you, And like some of my other work, and honestly, I've made so much work. Like, it's almost embarrassing how much work I've made since I've started. But I have these trophies that I made very early on out of clay, and I call them the insecurity trophies, because I was asked by a friend, Meryl Brown, a lot of you know her, to make a trophy for one of her nonprofits that was going to be given out as the trophy. And so in the process of making that trophy, I had a lot of failures. But then I looked at the failures and I thought, that's actually a really profound idea, a trophy that is a failure. Like giving yourself a trophy for making a mistake, or for experimenting and not having it work out right. And I was already saving a lot of the air quote mistakes from my 3D printer because I love when the printer goes off the rails. And I mean, even that big disaster that I showed, there's something quite beautiful about it. It's like a nest. It's like a bird's nest. You know, there's something aesthetically really, to me, really beautiful about that. And also the idea that, you know, when you are, especially a new artist, like for me, I had a lot of insecurity for sure. What, you know, was, for example, the question, am I going to teach a workshop? Like, why do I have the right to decide to stop teaching and making art? Like, you know, am I worthy of that? Is my art going to be good enough to make that trade-off in life? You know, and I think for a lot of artists, we ask this of ourselves, am I worthy of being an artist? But the answer is, you know, yeah, everybody's worthy of it. And the mistakes are sort of opportunities, and also if you don't make them, you don't get better. And there's just so many benefits to making mistakes. And I also see in the audience one of my bridge partners here, Georgine. And you know, what we learn in bridge is like you have to just keep going back because there's no way you're going to win every time. You're going to make a mistake, you're going to fail, you're going to come in last, whatever it is. And you have to be willing to like get up the next day and go back and do it again. And also embrace that, you know, we're not perfect, we're human, and we all make mistakes, and that's actually part of being human, and it's actually kind of a beautiful thing. So, long-winded answer there. Yes, Maria.
What's next? Like we thought about maybe making glasses.
I am going to be working on making a wig. And I have some wig pins that I plan to make. I'm not 100% sure what's next, except that I know that I'm going to take a little breather because this was actually a lot of work to get to today. And you know, for the last three months, ever since I was going to look up the date of when we first talked, but I think it's been under 3 months or 3 months about. You know, I've just really nonstop been working on this show and on these pieces and on this presentation, and so I'm looking forward to having a little break. That's what's next. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Lynda for being here and for going through this amazing process, which I love. And I will say that when she brought the purse in for the first time, the very first thing I said was, you blew it out of the water. Like, that is just beyond all comprehension, and nothing that I would have ever imagined. And to me, they're beautiful.
That's because you didn't see all the early versions.
Well, we love them, and
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Yes. So we can all go out and go shopping. Woohoo!